Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of YOML, a year of magical learning. We are on book 70 today. If you're new to this podcast, Chris reads a lot of books and he writes about his reflections and his lessons learned, and we'll discuss whatever he wants to talk about. So I'll have Chris take over and tell you about the book.
Yeah. So welcome back, everyone. The book we're going to be talking about today is actually a really interesting book. It's called The Demon Under the Microscope. Its a subtitle is From Battlefield Hospitals to Nazi Labs, One Doctor's Heroic Search for the World's First Miracle Drug by the author Thomas Hager. This book is about the history of antibiotics. This scientist and his team that discovered this drug called sulfa, which was the world's first antibiotic. And the whole story about how it came to be, all the trials and the team, failures and struggles, and how all of a sudden they discovered this, and then there was the first antibiotic, and it was making it was a huge deal like when it first came out. Subsequent, like 10-20 years later or whatever it was, after the first sulfa, they did end up discovering penicillin, which was the more natural, organic way of leveraging antibiotics. And then obviously, as you guys probably know, antibiotics in general, that's what's where we're at today, right? It seems like there's antibiotics are prescribed for everything. So that's the book. It's a really interesting book. I found it really fascinating, and it was an interesting one on this journey overall. So on to the reflection. So what this book made me think about, though, was the concept of everything in moderation. Personally, I actually really have a strong dislike for antibiotics these days. I think I've told you this before, but I actually personally think that they're the reason why my daughter Amelia passed away. She was born at 22 weeks and 6 days old, so super premature. The way that medicine is done these days, they're extra precautious with children that are born that young, because any kind of bacteria could be an awful thing for them, right? So they immediately give them a broad range spectrum of antibiotics when they're born, and just as precautionary measure, just to make sure that everything's okay. But as for me personally, I actually feel like that set into the chain of events and emotion that ultimately led her to getting the infection that she got, which was called NEC, or necrotizing enterocolitis, which was her intestines started to perforate, and her stuff started leaking into her body, which which then is a really dangerous situation. When bacteria is leaking into your bloodstream, it can cause sepsis and a lot of other bad things to happen. So I have a kind of a love-hate relationship in general with antibiotics. I totally understand the power of antibiotics. I mean, this whole story about sulfa drugs and it changed the world, right? In a lot of ways, we struggled. It talked a lot about the diseases that we could just never solve ever, and things like strep, we don't even think about strep at all as like a big deal these days, but like back then it really was. Like, I mean, you got a blister, sometimes it can turn into strep and you'd be dead. It's just like antibiotics definitely had a place in this world for the strong cures that they can have, but at the same time, everything in moderation, right? So, however, this isn't really a reflection about antibiotics and why they're good or bad necessarily. This is really more of a reflection on my end about balance and moderation in life, with antibiotics as the example. So I go back to what I learned about, from this book about the first sulfa drugs and antibiotics in general, and how powerful they were. Well, once we discovered this, we did what we always do, and we just kept prescribing antibiotics for everything, right? Like, I don't know if you know what the name antibiotic stands for. Do you know what it stands for?
What do you mean?
Like the etymology?
It's antibacteria.
It's anti-life, actually, is what it stands for. So like probiotics are pro-life, and antibiotics or bio is life. So it's anti-life.
Right. It's supposed to kill bacteria.
It kills everything. Like, I mean, it kills it all, right? Humans just in general, we have this awful trait of, once we find something that works in one particular application, we just blanket carpet bomb everything. And now you get to the point in time where bacteria is becoming resistant to antibiotics because we prescribe it for everything, and it's causing a lot of damage in people's lives. My thought around this whole entire book made me really think about everything in moderation. And instead of always constantly trying to fight nature and carpet bombing nature and trying to do all these crazy things, nature has a way of always tipping the scales back. We do it every single damn time. Like, it's just like time and time again. We make the same mistake over and over. And eventually nature says enough of this. And I have a feeling in 500 years, 1,000 years from now, they're going to look back on this time frame of the blatant, grotesque overuse of antibiotics and killing our microbiomes, and then the ramifications that spawned from that and how nature fought back. Well, it'll probably be, I don't know where it's going to go from there, but anyway, we have to figure a way to come back together, is my point, and to be more harmonious with nature, and to use the things that we create and the things that we understand in moderation. So that was the lesson for me, is just It's great to do what we do, but everything in moderation, because that's how nature works. So yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Question I had for everyone was, what areas of your life are you overusing a good thing potentially?
So I tend to agree with your sentiment about antibiotics. For me, it's one of those things where antibiotics is to be used as a last resort. It's supposed to be used as an intervention, not as a
Right.
the first line of defense for
right.
everything. And right now, this is what society is doing. Everything, when you get something, okay, give them antibiotics. When the animals is sick, give them antibiotics. Or the animal is not sick, give them antibiotics just to prevent from getting sick. And so we essentially incubating these bacteria and conditioning to become resistant to the antibiotics that we have. And then when we really need them, it won't work. And that's a danger that people in society as a whole don't fathom the level of risk that we take for doing that, right? I mean, the thing is, for the most part, if you're sick, right, let your body get a chance to fight it first, before you dump antibiotics down someone's throat. And that's the thing. And I dislike antibiotics usage especially in animals, because the animals, for the most part, you kept them in a condition that it kind of like foster the growth of these microorganisms, the bacteria that makes animals sick. And then you would pump the antibiotics into their bodies just to prevent them from getting sick.
Right.
And so then we basically transfer the antibiotic, the bug and antibiotic into our bodies, right? And we are basically incubating these bugs.
Yeah, we're killing our microbiomes. I mean, we're messing with nature constantly with this stuff.
It's even more than moderation. To me, this is used with caution. Even moderations, I still would disagree with, just because for me is antibiotics. Yes, I agree. There are certain cases where you would need it in a balance of life and death. You would need it, and that's when, if you don't use it until then, yes, that antibiotic will save your life. But if you use it before, by the time you need it, it won't work, because there's nothing else strong enough to kill the bugs that's infecting you. And so for me, especially in the antibiotic world, I don't want to use them unless that's the last thing.
Yeah, it's a medical intervention. Like, I mean, I on the flip side of that, I saw with Amelia the power of modern medicine. Modern medicine is amazing. Like, I mean, these drugs and the understanding of how our chemicals react in our body and life-saving measures that can be taken in an emergency is unreal. But beyond that, and beyond like that, those kind of settings, I mean, I feel like, isn't the Hippocratic oath like to do no harm? Like, I feel like
well, that's just the belief, but people don't really understand what's Hippocratic or not, just because how do you know if you do no harm when you say, do I know if I'm prescribing a wrong medication? So it's not about the reality.
Don't prescribe it. Like, I mean, if you don't,
but they do, right?
I know.
I mean, it's like you go to a doctor, right? You go to a doctor, right? They will say, if you have, let's say you have high cholesterol, it's statin, some kind of statin flavor, right? It's the same thing. They don't.
But who's even say high cholesterol is bad? I mean, these are all. I've read many stories that say that, or many articles that say that high cholesterol, isn't necessarily an indicator all the time of. There's so many other factors that go into.
It's just like when something bad happened, you see this ambulance and this policeman. Those guys are the bad guys. Avoid policemen, avoid ambulance, because the observations say, hey, when somebody's sick, you see high cholesterol.
Right.
When something bad happened, you see this fireman, right? These firemen must be a demon or something. Why are they causing all these things?
Right.
Because the thing is, we don't know for sure, right, what it means. We just think we do. And so for me to say, for doctors to do no harm, I think they knew at some level that what they're giving people could harm them. I know at some level they know that, because they don't know enough. It's like, let's say I don't know what the NEC is, but I'm going to give them antibiotics anyway. Oh, I don't know what happened, but I'm going to give them surgery anyway. So that's, I mean, to me, at some level, you going against your oath as a doctor. So to
I
me,
agree.
I'm not gonna hold a doctor to it. So yeah, do the best you could, but don't use that as a reason to say, hey, doctor has every right to tell you what is right and what is wrong because they have this, they have that, whatever. No, they're just another person that may be familiar with the situation.
Right.
Right. That's how I look at them. But as far as everything else, they're just following everybody else's past, whatever they study in school is basically from another group of study of doctors that pass down the stuff. And it's never one of those things where, they know for sure. They just say, well, if it has been done and I haven't seen any direct result immediately, then it must be okay. Right? If I eat dirt today, Chris, right? And I tell you, I didn't die. That means dirt is not bad. So give people dirt.
Right.
I'm generalizing it, but
No, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. If you don't know what dirt is, let's say you don't, that's the first time you've seen dirt, and you give it to me, and I didn't die immediately, right? And then they're going to say, well, let's look at dirt. Okay, is there something in dirt that the body needs? Yeah, there's iron in dirt. That my body needs iron. Okay, that you should eat dirt.
Right.
So the thing is, there's like these, like coincidences, right? That give you a sense of an answer, but sometimes it's not the answer because it's not the whole story. Just like I'm just embellishing the dirt example, right? You shouldn't eat dirt, but dirt's not gonna kill me. So something, if you say, well, if antibiotic didn't do this, right, we should give more antibiotics because it's not bad, right?
Right.
It's good. Or cholesterol, right? Cholesterol is, I'm observing, every single time something bad happens, you see all these policemen, all these ambulance, all these doctors, all these firemen, right? These guys must be the bad guy, just because that's how I see it.
Yes. I mean, I agree 100% with everything you're saying. For me, it always goes back to nature is always in harmony, right? And when we try to tip the scales, and then I don't know, for some weird reason, when we think we've gotten one up on nature, we're so stupid.
You can't get me. Nature has millions of years of experience. Even for our evolution, it's not like we consciously know what it is. Like our nature has been conditioned for millions and millions of years. So they have the best optimal pathway to deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with. We as an adult probably don't spend more than 5 years studying this. So let's say I'm some kind of a pathologist and I'm studying some diseases. I found penicillin or I found whatever. The maximum I have is 10 years experience in that study. Sure. In the past 12 years, I studied how to be a citizen, right? And in college, I've learned how to be how to be like flexible, how to be like, very generalized and know how to learn, right? And then I go to medical school, I basically learn about human body, the basic of it. And then in my years, I mean, by that time I'm 30 something, right? So that means that I don't have so much time in the areas of antibiotics and medicine. And then after that, I become an expert and I say, hey, everybody should take antibiotics. And everybody listen to me. And because I'm a quote unquote a doctor, I'm qualified, then I should be, the expert and everybody should listen to me.
This is the irony of humanity.
And then you say, hey, compare that to millions of, even billion of years of human evolution that is kind of like chart out the best path, most optimal path. So how can you say my minute iota of experience, if I'm really good at what I do, I'm the best among the humans compared to the billions of years of these changes that we made, right? Because evolution is essentially try everything and eliminate what is not effective. Mother Nature always wins.
I agree. That's the beauty and the irony, though. On the other, flipping the coin around, though, to the other side of humanity is we're amazing because we can figure these things out to a certain extent. We like unlock this tiny little code, but then we like feel like that's by
accident. That's evolution.
It's like the cheat code for everything,
I'm sorry, but we didn't unlock shit. Okay, we got it by accident. How did penicillin get discovered?
Well, sulfa, that's the story of sulfa. It wasn't discovered by accident. This was a very concentrated effort toward trying to find.
It's still by accident.
Yes, it was an accident.
Yes, you spend the time, but you say, hey, let's try this and see what comes up next. It is trial and error. It's not like, hey, I know how to put these together and they work, right? I'm saying I have a hunch it may work, but I don't know. Right. Everything's by accident. We stumble across whatever it is. It's not by design.
But we're able to stumble upon stuff. Like, I mean, that's
part of human evolution.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I think we are giving ourselves too much credit.
I agree. That was what I was getting at, is from the same person that could bring you this amazing discovery of accident, but a discovery, then we also, like, you know, are on the exact same species, can be the one that
without evolution to build you the brain, to build you the emotions and in the sensories and all the things that you have, for you to have that iota of luck that you found something, right? It's supposed to be, you know, credited to the evolution of, you know, how your brains is working. Right. And then you say, well, because I found this, I'm better than evolution. So who care about billions of years of experience, right? I'm better. I'm smarter, right?
We always figure it out, though. We always eventually it comes back around.
Isn't that the oblivious, the concept of oblivious? You're oblivious to what you don't know.
You mean ignorant? Or like, is that what you're saying?
No, ignorant is one thing, but when you think you know, but you don't know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like this is well,
because when you're ignorant, you know you don't know.
It's true,
right? But when you really
think
say,
you know and you don't,
when you really like are convinced that you know this is the answer,
right?
But like in reality, you're wrong, right?
Right.
To me, that's the most dangerous. Just because the thing is, if you're ignorant, that's fine, because you don't know. You can say, well, I don't know, so I can't really try to force and convince you of this position that I have. But when you are really convinced that this is the thing, but in reality, it's the total opposite. But you're trying to convince people that what you thought was wrong is right. That's the dangerous part.
I agree. I mean, antibiotics.
You look at Entoki, right? Back in the 60s or 70s, whatever. He's kind of professor from Minnesota, whatever. He created all these, you know, cholesterol, high fat, high cholesterol, and all this mumbo jumbo, right? And right now he's been discredited for it.
Yeah,
it basically messed up all of the generations that has been on this diet whirlwind, right?
Right, low fat.
Now, no one knows what's going on, just because okay, some doctor claimed to say, hey, you know, I'm qualified and I have these and that, and this is the the research I've done, and you know, this is the mandate, and then the government takes over and say, hey, you should eat this and you should avoid that, and blah blah. I mean, they demonize like coconut oil, avocado, and everything, and now say, well, you should eat avocado. Oh, you should eat, you know, coconut's not bad for you. It's like, okay. So now people always like at a loss. They don't know what's going on.
That's the whole thing. I mean, that's the last sentence that I wrote. It's like we don't know more than nature, no matter how much we think we do.
The point I'm saying is, yes, we don't know, that's fine. But when you are enforcing your opinions that is wrong upon the public, you're doing them a lot of harm.
I agree. I mean, if you're somebody that makes a discovery, maybe sometimes it's just good to keep it to yourself for a small group of people, you know.
You can publish a finding, just don't say, you know, this is
the end all be all,
new dogma of this and dogma of that or whatever. And that's the thing. That's the thing. People, they look at you as if you come across as an expert, and a lot of people do, especially in this current time. It's all self-proclaimed expert of something.
Right.
And the thing is, in reality, like, you know, most of the time, with time, we will be proving wrong, right?
It's not most of the time. It's all you will always, like no matter what. Like there. I mean, I don't even know that there is any universal truths in this world. You know, like I mean, it's we might think we know. I mean, we're certainly biased toward, you know, the whole values equation and how that fits into living a life of purpose and, you know, all that other stuff that we talk about. But at the same time, like we have no idea. Like we're just literally, you know, I mean, every day we're learning new stuff, and every day, you know, we're like there's a million different ideologies, a trillion, and none of them are right. But that's not the point. It doesn't matter if you're right. It's just, do you feel fulfilled? I guess.
Right. So to me, that's what I'm saying. Is my only gripe with people is that you are enforcing your ideals and your opinions onto others. And to me, that is violating the freedom of your, a person's will. And for me, like, I don't care if I'm like very good at this or very good at that. I say, this is what I think I know. It could be different for you. So you
Right.
gotta make your own decisions. I can't make it for you because I'm not you. That's
Right.
my stand. Right.
I agree. So bottom line with this particular reflection, I don't know how much I love this one for myself. Like, as we've been talking about it, I feel like I could have done a better job on this one. If we were going to sum this one up, it should be something around the lines of, like, it's great to discover new things. It's great to learn. It's great to do the things that we're supposed to do as humans. But at the end of the day, always take it with a grain of salt, and don't apply one lesson that
Use
you
it
learn
when
to everything
necessary.
until you learn more, and until you just always remember to be open. Like, you don't know shit. It's what it goes down to. The goal of meditation and mindfulness is there is no goal. Remembering that if you were gone tomorrow, all the tasks and stuff that we were doing and all the things that you feel are so important in your life,
It just
it doesn't matter. It's gone. So I don't know if antibiotics or if what they did for my daughter was the right thing or not. But what I do know is, like, it shouldn't have been decided immediately. It shouldn't be the way that it is. Right.
The first answer to everything, right?
And it should be able to be questioned by the people that say, like, why are you doing this? Like, and we should be able to learn and have a say in, what goes on in our own life if we can,
Right.
and take ownership of what we're able to take ownership of.
You're back in you're talking about like the history of medicine, right? Back in the days, like, for example, George Washington dies because
they bled him.
Bloodletting, right?
Yeah.
So, like I say, he's a president of the United States, right? Yeah. And so the thing is, because the doctor is a doctor, that's how bloodletting was allowed.
Maybe I should change the title to this and say "Do no harm." Like, I mean, it's because it really is what it is, right? Like, it's you can't just apply. You can't just take some knowledge that you have in another spectrum and just throw it at a wall and say, well, this should apply here too. You know what I mean? Like,
so it's called expert by association. So, for example, if I work for Shell, right? Does that mean I'm like successful because I work for Shell? Because Shell is successful, that means I'm successful. Or right. I work for Google, right? Does that mean I'm successful? Because when I say, hi, I'm an ex-Google, I'm an ex-Facebook, I'm an Microsoft, whatever.
Right.
Does that mean I'm successful because the company is successful? In reality, it means shit. Okay.
I agree.
But the what people think is because I'm an ex-Google or I'm an ex this or whatever, that I have this expertise.
Credibility around it and stuff.
Right. And to me, the reality is a total opposite.
Yeah.
It's totally opposite. Because, like, for example, I'm a Microsoft partner. Just because I apply and I got to say, well, I can resell your one-year program, I'm a Microsoft partner, doesn't mean I know shit about Microsoft. There are millions of people who apply for that thing. And the million of people have certifications or whatever. Doesn't mean they know anything about it. They just say, well, I'm just one of the people in millions of people that has some kind of association with.
Hell, I work
because I use Windows, right? Windows. Am I a Microsoft guy? Right.
Right.
I buy a MacBook. Does that mean I'm a Mac connoisseur or whatever? You know what I mean? So success by association, and people take that to the extreme. And so a lot of times, like, and one other thing that, and I don't want to pick on anyone in particular, but, like, for example, one person is successful in one area, and then they seem to come out and be like a spokesperson for another area, saying, this is that or whatever, but they have no expertise, no experience in that other area. Yes, you do great in one area, but doesn't make you an expert in the other area. So same thing with doctors, right? Doctors, they already know whatever they learned from medical school. And then, like, bloodletting, for example, right? They didn't know that was the bad thing to do. That's what the medications of that time. And that's what they do every time you get sick. They just bleed you to death.
Right. Which is the worst thing you can do.
Exactly. I mean, so that's, like I said, you think about all the medical history that people practice is very, I mean, people are like do open brain surgeries and cutting people's body parts and stuff like that. It's gruesome in terms of if you do some of those books, you might have nightmares just because it's really scary.
Well, it talked a lot about the history of gangrene and war wounds and hospital bacteria. I mean, it went through the history of bacteria in general. That's one of the reasons why the guy that discovered this was so obsessed with it, because he actually used to be a battlefield doctor. He saw a lot of this stuff and he was like, there's got to be a way to fix this stuff.
The event is one thing, but it's the solutions that they apply. To me, that's horrible as well.
I agree. I think we're on the same page for sure. It's an interesting book, an interesting conversation. So we'll wrap it up with, what areas of your life are you overusing a good thing potentially? Is it even a good thing? Don't apply what you know in one area to another area and assume that it's going to work either, So anyway, till the next conversation, fun as always, and we will see you all here soon.
Yeah.